Picture a Saturday night in 1942. Downtown movie palaces glitter like electric cathedrals. Popcorn smells mingle with perfume. A crowd in pinstripe and pearls surrenders its troubles to a 20-foot smile on screen. Hollywood has promised a perfect escape, and the promise feels unbreakable. But if you could push through the velvet ropes, duck under the klieg lights, and sneak past the star-shaped dressing room doors, you'd hear a different soundtrack. One mixed from slammed telephones, shakily uncorked gin, and the hush of children wondering why their famous parent never says, "I'm proud of you." That paradox, spotlight bliss masking private abyss, is the oxygen of the golden age. Studios sold it by the reel, magazines printed it by the ton, and we, generations later, still crave the fantasy. Yet every fantasy writes checks real people have to cash. The gentle cowboy who saved Dust Bowl families left his own daughter emotionally frostbitten. The Prince of Yuletide croons ruled Christmas playlists while ruling his household with a ledger and a belt. The swashbuckler who embodied freedom in Technicolor spent his final nights handcuffed to morphine and memories he couldn't outduel. Why scoop up these cracked gems now? Because the machinery of myth-making never shut down. Today, it just streams in 4K and refreshes every 8 seconds. TikTokers chasing virality, A-listers curating authentic Instagram feeds, even you and me polishing LinkedIn bios. We are all authors of selective realities. Peeking behind yesterday's silver screen smiles is more than vintage gossip. It's a masterclass in the hidden costs of performing perfection. Tonight, we'll prize open 7 velvet coffins and let the ghosts conduct their own autopsies. You'll meet a saintly juror whose real verdict on intimacy was guilty of absence, a velvet-voiced patriarch whose lullabies couldn't muffle the crack of discipline, and a tuxedo-clad rebel who fought fascism with song, yet broke every rule of fidelity at home. Their contradictions aren't footnotes, they are the story. Proof that talent and torment often share the same trailer, and that applause can echo like a dare. How long can you balance brilliance before the darkness tips the scale? So dim the smart home lights, silence the group chat, and lean closer. The projector bulb is warming, the curtains quiver, and once this reel starts spinning, the legends can't hide behind soft focus any longer. When the dust settles, you may never trust a glamorous grin again. But you'll understand why the brightest spotlights always cast the longest, sharpest shadows. Ready? Let's roll. Henry Fonda floated across screens as the embodiment of decency. Tom Joad braving dust storms for family. Juror number 8 persuading a room to choose mercy. Off camera, though, his Nebraska-bred stoicism calcified into Arctic silence. Jane and Peter Fonda recalled birthday candles blown out to the echo of their own applause, not their father's. Letters from location shoots arrived unsigned, as though affection might smudge his reputation for steel. 5 marriages cracked on the same fault line. Fonda could debate a script for hours, but faced with feelings, he simply left the room. Psychiatrist friends whispered about generational trauma. Henry replied, "I'm just busy." The tragedy deepened with Frances Ford Seymour. When her depression ended in suicide, Henry told the children it was a heart attack, locking grief behind one more closed door. Years later, Jane discovered the truth in a magazine archive and felt the ground of her childhood tilt. That betrayal birthed the radical activist Jane the World would meet in Hanoi. Rebellion was easier than waiting for a father's hug that never came. Across town lumbered Wallace Beery, MGM's highest-paid actor, barrel-chested, bulldog-jawed, beloved by depression audiences who craved simple-hearted heroes. Yet the studio gate guards kept a betting pool on how many minutes Beery would last before exploding each morning. Jackie Cooper, 9-year-old co-star on The Champ, remembered Beery pinching the boy's arm hard enough to bruise, then winking. Act with that pain. Offset, Beery devoured oysters while young extras went hungry, refusing to let the catering table open until he'd withdrawn. Rumor still lingers of a Beverly Hills brawl in which comedian Ted Healy died hours after Beery's alleged punch. The studio launched damage control, shipping Beery to Europe for vacation, while investigators hit dead ends. The case remains unsolved, but the legend fits the pattern. A man whose fists talked louder than any director. When Faye Dunaway stepped onto the Bonnie and Clyde set, crew members said the temperature seemed to drop. She walked like expectation itself. Perfection meant rehearsing lines until sunrise, studying dailies frame by frame, and berating hairdressers if a single curl wandered off mission. Warren Beatty admired the fire until he felt the burn. The tales piled up. On Chinatown, she allegedly refused restroom breaks, demanding Polanski shoot faster. When he didn't, a paper cup filled with something unscripted became projectile justice. A sound technician quit after Dunaway demanded her own personal boom mic operator who breathes quieter. Fast forward to 2019's Broadway revival Tea at 5. Stage managers kept a Faye log charting incidents. Misplaced wig pins equaled shouting. Lukewarm water bottles triggered slam doors. It ended when producers changed the theater lobby code overnight and emailed her termination before dawn. Then Cannes 2024. Dunaway appeared in a softly lit documentary, voice shaky yet resolute, admitting she'd cycled through untreated bipolar disorder for 50 years. Mania fueled the razor-sharp intuition audiences adored. Depressive crashes birthed the rage co-workers feared. She apologized without excuses, yet the question hung: how much wreckage can truth repair after decades of silence? Kirk Douglas turned scars into trademarks. Cleft chin, jagged temper, ambition honed by childhood hunger. On Spartacus, he shattered the blacklist by crediting Dalton Trumbo, daring senators to strike him down. But private courage mingled with rumors too dark to fade. Lena Wood's 2021 memoir claims her sister Natalie emerged from Douglas's hotel suite, dazed and bleeding, warned to stay silent or your mother will pay. No charges, no trial, only a story whispered behind memorial tributes. Fans ask, can a man be both freedom fighter and secret predator? Hollywood answers, box office first, ethics later. Errol Flynn tried outrunning morality at 24 knots. He drank cognac for breakfast, hunted sharks with dynamite, and lined yacht cabins with silk. In 1942, when Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterley, ages 17 and 16, accused him of statutory rape, Flynn arrived in court tireless, flirting with the stenographer. He beat the case, smiling. Anyone who wants me to swing has to catch me first. But the phrase, in like Flynn, became less compliment than coded warning. Post-trial, he spiraled. Malaria, flare-ups, morphine cocktails, a heart so damaged doctors advised sobriety, fly-by-night marriages, financial black holes, finally a fatal heart attack at 50. His self-written epitaph could read, lived once, died often. If Christmas has a soundtrack, Bing Crosby composed it. To date, White Christmas sells somewhere north of 100 million copies. Yet behind the fireplace glow stood a man who measured love in ounces and decimals. In the Crosby household, comfort equaled discipline. Sons were weighed every Sunday. Gain a pound, run laps. Gary Crosby described belts studded with metal rivets, leaving checkered bruises. Dinner conversations tracked report card decimals. A B+ invited a week of silent treatment. Bing believed hardship built character, forgetting that children aren't record albums you can remaster. Defenders note Crosby donated millions to charity, visited veterans' hospitals unannounced, and held dying actress Dixie Lee's hand through her final cirrhosis-racked nights. But charity dinner applause doesn't echo in a child's bedroom at 2 a.m. For Gary and brother Dennis, alcoholism beckoned like a family heirloom. Both died by their own hands. The Crosby myth stands, but it sings in a minor key. Peter Sellers could vanish behind accents so perfectly tuned they fooled their real-life owners. Director Blake Edwards joked that if Sellers passed away on a Friday, Clouseau would still report to set Monday. This genius hit a chaos spiral: undiagnosed bipolar disorder, hypochondria, seances in hotel suites where Sellers demanded deceased playwrights dictate dialogue. During a shot in the dark, he rewrote scenes hourly, leaving Edwards to stitch continuity with scissors and prayer. One afternoon, Sellers locked himself in a prop wardrobe, refusing to emerge unless co-star Elka Summer acknowledged Clouseau's existential ache. A week later, he suffered a heart attack, clinically dead for 2 minutes. Upon revival, he whispered, "I saw nothing. Let's hurry before the next one." Cast laughter froze in their throats. Milton Berle, television's first king, expected deference long after abdication. When Saturday Night Live invited him in 1979, Berle hijacked dress rehearsal, stuffing cue cards in pockets, ad-libbing vaudeville one-liners, even unzipping on stage for an old burlesque gag. Lorne Michaels banned the episode from reruns for decades. Burle, unfazed, told reporters, "They'll thank me when they're older." They didn't. Mickey Rooney's meteoric rise created a paradox. He played America's apple-cheeked sweetheart while wielding an adult's bargaining power before puberty. That imbalance warped into entitlement. On National Velvet, he reportedly teased 12-year-old Elizabeth Taylor with off-color jokes about her developing figure. Decades later, asked about Taylor's legendary beauty, Rooney sighed. She was okay, looked better in color. Rooney sprinted through 8 marriages, cheating on Ava Gardner, bankrupting himself on horses, dice, and failed restaurants. At 90, he found himself imprisoned by a stepson's financial guardianship, allowance capped at $200 a month. Congress summoned him to testify on elder abuse. He wept, voice shaking. This is not a Hollywood script. 2 years later, he died owing more in legal fees than his estate could pay. Fame had come full circle. Child star to powerless dependent. Before the word non-binary existed, Marlene Dietrich wore a tuxedo, kissed a woman on film, and dared censors to blink. She mothered one daughter while collecting lovers like boarding passes. Gary Cooper, Mercedes de Acosta, Jean Gabin, even a rumored weekend with Greta Garbo that biographers still argue over. Her marriage to producer Rudolph Sieber lasted 52 years, mostly by living on separate continents and sending affectionate cablegrams. When Joseph Goebbels offered her a blank check to return to Nazi Germany, Dietrich answered by buying U.S. war bonds and singing bawdy songs to Allied troops within mortar range. Soldiers draped sandbags over piano lids, but she kept playing. Ich hab noch einen Koffer in Berlin, she'd purr. I still have a suitcase in Berlin. A code-switch taunt to Hitler himself. Post-war Germany shunned her for decades. Only in 2002 did Berlin finally name a square in her honor. Dietrich's later years unfolded behind blackout curtains in a Paris apartment. Telephone her only stage. She whispered advice to Madonna, promised secrets to journalists if they'd wait until after I'm ashes, and declined photographs because people should remember legends, not ligaments. She kept final control, image eternal, body vanished. We've just walked barefoot through a hall of mirrors, each pane reflecting triumph and trauma in the same glittering shard. Henry Fonda showed us that moral grandeur on screen can coexist with a glacier where a father's heart should be. Faye Dunaway proved genius can blaze so hot it singes everyone within arm's reach before the owner feels the burn. Douglas and Flynn reminded us that a cleared courtroom docket isn't the same as an unblemished conscience. Bing Crosby's baritone still melts snow every December, yet for his sons it froze childhood into a landscape of ledger sheets and welts. Sellers and Berle turned comedy into controlled detonation, leaving collaborators to sweep up the shrapnel. Mickey Rooney's arc, meteoric to bankrupt, warns that the marble pedestal of youth can crumble into a cage of elder abuse. And Marlene Dietrich, our radiant outlier, proved that rebellion can be righteous, but even righteous rebels collect enemies and regrets. What then do we carry into the algorithm-ruled age of 2025? First, that fame doesn't manufacture character. It magnifies whatever already lives inside. A quiet kindness becomes philanthropy. A buried cruelty becomes generational damage. An untreated illness becomes a headline. Second, that audiences are co-authors of every myth. The Studio Fan Club of 1939 and today's subscriber count both reward extremes: beauty unblemished, courage uncompromised, genius unfiltered, until the human beneath buckles from the weight of expectation. And finally, that stories like these are warnings written in marquee lights. Polish the talent, yes, but service the soul with equal rigor. Because when the spotlight cuts out, the only critic left is the face in your dressing room mirror. So tell me, after hearing the confessions behind the curtain, which legend's mask cracked loudest for you? Do these revelations tarnish the art, or do they underline its rarity? That brilliance often flickers beside catastrophe. Scroll down, flood the comments, and let's debate whether perfection is ever worth the collateral damage. If this deep dive lit a candle in the dusty corners of Hollywood memory, hit like, share with that friend who insists they don't make stars like they used to, and slam subscribe, because the next episode will excavate a scandal so fresh it still reeks of newsroom ink. Until then, keep chasing the spotlight, but never forget to check where your own shadow falls.